Ever had one of those moments where time just seems to stop? A single second stretches into an eternity, and the world as you know it tilts on its axis. For me, that moment arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, delivered by a knock on the door. I was expecting a package, maybe a neighbor dropping by. But when I opened the door, a woman I'd never seen before stood there. She was beautiful, poised, and holding a small, white envelope. She smiled a sad, apologetic smile and said, "You must be Sarah. I'm Chloe, and I think we need to talk about your husband, Mark." My heart didn't just sink, it plummeted. Chloe. The name was familiar. A ghost from text messages I'd accidentally seen on Mark's phone months ago. Messages he'd explained away as a work colleague going through a tough time. A colleague, right, as she stepped inside. My perfectly curated life, my happy 15-year marriage, began to unravel right before my eyes. I led her to the living room, the same room where Mark and I had celebrated our anniversary just weeks before. The air grew thick with unspoken words. I braced myself, thinking I was about to hear the sordid details of an affair, the classic story of betrayal. But what Chloe was about to tell me was so much more twisted, so much more shocking than I could have ever imagined. My husband wasn't just a cheater. He was a monster living a double life, and I had been sleeping next to him every night, completely oblivious. Chloe sat on the edge of my cream-colored sofa, the one Mark had picked out. She looked around the room, at the framed photos of me and Mark on the mantelpiece, smiling on our wedding day, on vacation in Italy, at our daughter Lily's graduation. Her eyes welled up. "He told me he was divorced," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "He said you two had an amicable split years ago, but still co-own the house for your daughter's sake. He said you were just roommates. The word felt like a slap. I thought about the night before, how Mark had kissed me goodnight and told me he loved me. We weren't roommates. We were husband and wife, or so I thought. Chloe explained that she and Mark had been together for almost 2 years. 2 years. They had a life together. They went on weekend trips he told me were business conferences. They celebrated holidays he claimed he had to work. He had built an entire parallel universe with this woman, using a foundation of lies. She pulled out her phone and showed me pictures. There they were, laughing on a beach I'd never been to, toasting with champagne in a restaurant I didn't recognize. He was wearing a sweater I'd bought him for Christmas. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. He wasn't just deceiving me. He was taking pieces of our life and sharing them with her. But that wasn't the worst part. The envelope she held contained not love letters, but bank statements, financial records. She had started getting suspicious when Mark became evasive about his finances, about their future. He'd always told her he was a successful investment banker, but things didn't add up, so she did some digging. Chloe was a forensic accountant, a detail that was about to blow my world wide open. She discovered that Mark wasn't just cheating on me emotionally. He was systematically draining our life savings. The money, I thought, was going into our retirement fund, into Lily's college fund. It was disappearing. He had been siphoning it into offshore accounts, creating a new life for himself, a life that apparently didn't include either of us. As she laid out the documents on my coffee table, the numbers told a story far more horrifying than any whispered confession of infidelity. Mortgaging our home behind my back, taking out loans in my name, forging my signature. This wasn't just a man having an affair. This was a calculated, cold-hearted plan to ruin me. Chloe had found it all. She'd followed the money trail, a trail that led to a web of deceit, so complex it was hard to believe one man could be capable of it. He had convinced her to invest her own money with him, promising huge returns. She had lost her life savings, too. We were two women from different worlds, a wife and a mistress, united by the same man's treachery. We were his victims. The shock was slowly replaced by a cold, hard rage. All the little things suddenly made sense. The late nights at the office, the sudden, extravagant gifts followed by periods of financial tightness. His insistence on handling all our finances, telling me not to worry my pretty little head about it. I had trusted him, implicitly. I had built my life on that trust, and he had used it as a weapon against me. Looking at Chloe, I didn't see an enemy. I saw an ally. She had come to me not out of spite, but out of a shared sense of justice. She had nothing to gain from telling me, and everything to lose. She could have just walked away, but she didn't. She chose to warn me. In that moment, we weren't a wife and a mistress, we were a team. We spent the rest of the afternoon huddled together, piecing together the full extent of Mark's deception. Her accounting skills and my intimate knowledge of his habits created a complete picture. The plan was clear. We weren't going to let him get away with it. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival. It was about taking back our lives. The next day, we went to the police. We went to a lawyer. We presented them with the mountain of evidence Chloe had gathered. The authorities were initially skeptical, as these cases can be messy, but the paper trail was undeniable. It was a clear-cut case of fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. An investigation was launched, and an arrest warrant was issued for Mark. The hardest part was telling my daughter, Lily, how do you tell your child that the father she idolizes is a criminal, that his love was a performance? Her world shattered, just as mine had, but seeing the strength in her eyes, I knew we would get through this together. Mark was apprehended a week later, trying to board a flight to a country with no extradition treaty. He was caught at the airport, his face on the news. The man I saw in that mug shot was a stranger. The charming, loving husband I thought I knew had vanished, replaced by a common thief with cold, empty eyes. The legal battle was long and arduous. It was draining, emotionally and financially. There were days I wanted to give up, to just let it all go. But then I'd look at my daughter, or I'd get a text from Chloe, and I'd find the strength to keep fighting. Chloe testified against him. I testified against him. We stood together in that courtroom and took back our power, piece by piece. In the end, justice was served. Mark was sentenced to a significant prison term for his financial crimes. The affair, while morally reprehensible, was the least of his offences in the eyes of the law. We were able to recover some of the money, but not all of it. The emotional scars, however, run much deeper than any financial loss. Rebuilding my life has been the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Trust is a fragile thing, and mine was pulverized. But slowly, day by day, I started to put the pieces back together. I sold the house, filled with too many ghosts, and moved into a smaller place with Lily. I went back to work, finding independence and purpose I hadn't realized I'd lost. And what about Chloe? You might think our alliance was a temporary one, born of circumstance. But it became something more. We check in with each other. We grab coffee sometimes. We are two women bonded by a bizarre, painful chapter of our lives. There's no friendship rulebook for this situation, but we found a way to support each other. She started her own financial consulting firm, helping people protect themselves from fraud. She turned her pain into her mission. My story is a cautionary tale, a reminder that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who can hurt us the deepest. It's a reminder to never give away your power, especially your financial power, in a relationship, but it's also a story of resilience. It's about how, even when your world is burned to the ground, you can find the strength to rise from the ashes. You can find unexpected allies in the most unlikely of places. My life today isn't the one I planned, but it's mine. It's real, and I am stronger than I ever thought possible. Thank you for watching my story today. If you've been through something similar or just found this story compelling, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'll be sharing more stories of survival, resilience, and finding light in the darkest of places. Your support means the world. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for being here.